Hey friends, it's Cass with Garden House Treasures. Thank you so much for stopping in. Today I am so excited to share with you how I made these narrow neck bottles out of resin. These are perfect for your purse, and yes, they are hollow in the middle so you can fill them up with whatever you want. I was so excited when I was able to get this project to work, and I'm so excited to share it with all of you. So we're going to make a mold for this first, and then we're going to get into making the actual bottle, and I'm so excited, so let's get started. This is the jar I'll be using. It's the CoverGirl True Blend Foundation jar. I liked the size of it. It's the perfect size for your purse, and it has a unique shape, which ended up being perfect for this project. So I just went ahead and cleaned that up, took the labels off. And we need to score this jar to be able to cut it. So this is a Sawzall blade. It's meant for metal. If you have a glass blade, that would be more ideal, but the glass cutter I had would not fit in the little ridge where I'm going to be cutting. So I'm going to be cutting in this little kind of indent here, just scoring all the way around. I'm putting a fair amount of pressure. Please be careful with any kind of blade or sharp object you might be using. I'm just going to go around several times trying to just score a little line. Hopefully you can see it here, but there is a little bit of a slight line there that I made with that blade. So now I need a bucket of cold water, so I'm going to add some ice to this. I want it to make it really cold, so I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. I have some copper wire. This is just 20 gauge copper wire, and I'm going to be wrapping it around that ridge where I scored the line, because this is where I want to cut my jar. So I'm going to wrap it around several times, and I want to wrap it nice and tight. And once you've wrapped it around, you're just going to twist the ends together, again, still keeping it nice and tight. And just trim those extra ends off as close to the bottle as you can. So how we're going to cut this jar is we're going to make it very hot, and then we're going to immediately plunge it into the water to make it cold. So it's going to be that sudden temperature change that gets our jar to crack in the spot that we want it. So I'm taking this lighter, I'm keeping my hand as far away from the flame as possible by keeping it down at the bottom of the jar, and I'm going around several times. Be very patient with this. You want the wire to be really hot. Don't touch it, just go around several times, making it extra hot, and then when you're done, just plunge it immediately into the cold water, and it should crack open for you. I'm not going to cut any of this out of me heating it up. I'll just speed it up so you can see that I did do it for quite a while. And dunking it in the water. You might hear a pop or a crack, you might not. I usually don't with these small jars. And the top comes off just like that. It won't be a perfect cut, but that's okay. It actually works out well that way. So you can see the top. There's some pointy edges. Be careful when working with this glass. You don't want to sand it down at all because you want it to fit perfectly right back in the top of your jar, just like this. We need a casing to make our mold, so I'm using this condiments bottle from the dollar store. I'm measuring it out. You want your casing to be quite a bit taller than your original piece that you're making a mold out of. So I measured it out, and now I'm just cutting it down to size, and I'll be able to use this for both the top and bottom pieces of my jar. And I just want it to be an open tube, so I'm cutting both sides off to make it just wide open. And I'll do this, like I said, for both the top and bottom portion of my jar. Make them casings out of this condiments bottle. So this masking tape I have, it's sticky side up. I laid it down to prep an area for my molds. So I'm sticking my pieces to the tape, and then we're going to take our casings and we're going to try to get our original pieces as much as we can in the center of these tubes, these casings. So take your time and just try to get it in the center really well here. So once we're happy with the placement of our casing, we're going to take some hot glue. We're going to be really generous with it, and we're going to go all around the base of our casing to make sure that no silicone is going to leak out of the bottom. Of course, just repeating these steps with both parts of the jar to make 2 separate molds. For this project, I'm using J. Diction silicone rubber. You mix equal parts of A and B, and we're going to pour this slowly into each mold casing. And as you can see, for the large part of the jar, I have it the open end facing up because of course we want to fill the inside of it to make sure we get the mold of the inside so that it will come out that way when we make our resin piece. And same thing with the top part. I have the small spout facing downwards for the top part, and that's exactly how you want to place this when making your mold. And we're just pouring slowly. I did cut some out so you didn't have to painfully watch this entire thing, but you want to pour this very slowly and make sure you fill it up past the top of your piece a ways so that your mold is nice and sturdy on the bottom. So this silicone said that it took only 5 to 7 hours to set, and this is a little over 12 hours later. I am taking the silicone out of the casings, and I had a painfully hard time getting the hot glue off of one of them, so I cut a lot of this out. But you'll see I'm gonna just cut these out of the casings because it's just too difficult to try and squeeze them out and save the casing. So I'll just cut them out. And when I took them out, I noticed that the silicone still felt kind of slimy. I still felt like I was getting some residue on my hands. So I decided to let them sit for a full 24 hours before taking my pieces out. This is 24 hours after I have poured the molds. So now I feel confident that I'm ready to take the original pieces out to demold them, I guess you might say. So I'm going to be very, very careful because the glass can be fragile, of course, and if I can help it, I really don't want to break my original piece when I'm demolding this. So I'm being as careful as I can, taking it nice and slow. I think I end up just kind of shimmying this piece out. Is a little difficult to demold. Pieces like this, like longer, tube or cylinder shaped pieces can be a little bit difficult. So just take your time, try not to break your original piece because of course you want the option of being able to use it to make more molds in the future. The top piece, when I got it out, it definitely flew out of my hands, but thankfully it did not break. And it still fits together perfectly, so none of it broke off, which is awesome. This is a cuticle trimmer, and I'm going to use this to just trim the little extra silicone that gets around the tops of the mold. You don't want to go too crazy with this. I've definitely done way too much in the past and my mold was kind of ruined after that. So just trim off the little bit of excess that you need to, and you should be good to call it a day. This mold is only going to take 1 ounce of resin, so I have that mixed here, and I'm going for kind of a peachish color, so I'm mixing some orange and pink alcohol inks with some rose gold glitter. So I have that mixed here in my cup. I like to spray my molds with 99% alcohol to help some of the bubbles rise to the top. And we're just going to slowly pour in our resin, and I'll start with the bottom piece first. For the top part of this mold, we're going to pour a thin, steady stream all the way around. We're going to try to avoid the middle of the mold because we don't want any resin to cure there in the center. I'm just going to fill it up a little bit, and then I'm going to go around and tap it down. And then I'm going to go and squeeze the bottom of this mold to release any air bubbles to the top. And we're going to do this several times, just pouring a little bit at a time and squeezing the air bubbles out to the top to make sure that no bubbles cure in this resin. You also want to make sure you fill this mold all the way up to the top, because if you don't, your lid will not screw on properly. When I'm done pouring this, I'll go ahead and hit the top with a heat gun and some 99% alcohol to pop any surface bubbles. And definitely let this sit for the whole recommended curing time. Mine is 24 hours. It's kind of a thin pour, so I want to make sure it's fully cured so it's not bendy or flexible. It is 24 hours later, so we're going to go ahead and take these out of the molds and see how they turned out. Of course, moment of truth is seeing if they properly fit together, and they do. So now we get to secure them together. So I've poured some clear resin here. You don't need much. I poured some for another project, so I'm just using a little bit of it for this. And we're just going to take this silicone makeup brush. We're going to put it all around the edges of this top piece. I've found is the easiest way to do it. Just be pretty generous with it. It's okay if there's a little bit extra on there. Put it all the way around, and then you're going to secure it to the bottom piece. So now I've got those secured together, and I want to make sure this is really secure and leak proof. So I'm taking some more clear resin and I'm putting it around the seam or crack where the two parts of our resin piece meet. And we're just going to go all the way around. Sometimes I just fill in this whole lip right here with resin, and I mean, that's just fine. It looks fine like that. We just want it to be secure. We don't want anything leaking out of these bottles. Sometimes the tops of these jars have some bubbles on them, or they're not quite smooth, so I'll just put a thin layer of resin on this part of the jar as well to smooth that out. So that is finished. We're gonna let this cure for another 24 hours. 24 hours later, everything is cured and secured together really well. This bottom edge is a little sharp, so I'm just gonna run that over some damp sandpaper really quick. I like to get my sandpaper wet because it helps the resin dust not fly up everywhere. So we're just gonna give that a quick little sand to smooth down that bottom edge, and we'll be good to go. These awesome little foundation pumps are from wholesalesuppliesplus.com. I will put a link in the description. I needed 20/410 sized pumps for this specific bottle. You can also get spray tops if you want that for your bottle. So I just cut the tube to size and screwed it right on top, and it is nice and secure in there. And this is our finished bottle, which is, like I said, one of my new favorite pieces, my new favorite projects. I'm so excited. I threw some water in here so you could see that it's leak proof and that the pump is working properly. Here they are side by side, our original glass foundation bottle and my finished resin bottle. I am so happy with it. I've made several of these already. I sell these for $5 each at my craft show, which is not enough, but that's what they sell at. I just love this project so much, and you can put anything imaginable in these bottles: lotion, hand sanitizer, sunscreen, face wash, whatever you can think of. I really hoped you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button. I hope you guys learned something new today. God bless.